reinforce development of human capital, and really creates engines for internal growth, if I can put it that way, while maintaining, again, their sovereignty. And all of this with the purpose of, or with the belief that this is the best way that the community, whether it be the Indo-Pacific community or the global community or any community, can work together and in a more peaceful and prosperous manner. Because the alternative, we think, is not attractive. So again, I apologize, a long answer. But if, for example, China were to come and say, oh, okay, you know, we're going to change our strategy, we're going to adopt this model, absolutely, we would work with them. But thus far, that has not been the case. And that's why people continue to focus on the differences. But in fact, it's not so much, you know, US versus China in the development context. It's, you know, let's work with partners who have the same objectives and operate under the same philosophy. If that ends up being the case with a Chinese entity, then we're very happy to work with them. Thank you.
So I'm answering the questions of Ibu Fada. I think thank you very much for the questions. Your questions was about the environmental sustainability and broader sustainability in general. I think I'm kind of reluctant to use word conditionality when it comes to this environmental sustainability. I think it's better to put it as a requirement. I think in development, at the end of the day, when we have a project and so on, it is about creating an impact. I think we certainly want to minimize the negative externality that will jeopardize that impact that we want to create. I think just on this environmental sustainability, for example, if you compare ADB's safeguard on environment with Indonesian government safeguard requirement on environment, it is pretty close. It's not far. I think it is, in some cases, actually Indonesia's requirement is more stringent than ADB. So in that case, then it is about partnership. It's not about conditionality. Because I was working for the IMF in the past, I'm kind of sensitive on the word of conditionality. So let's not use conditionality. But in general, sustainability require at least three things, in my view. Environment sustainability is becoming more prominent these days, given that the source of growth are in the urban. Climate change has become an issue. But at the same time, you know, we value this a bit more. In that context, then, I think all of us need to work on it. And finally, certainly, as Jeff was mentioning, I think the project needs to be sustainable financially. Otherwise, it will be a burden to the government. And that we require that from the beginning when we design the project. Because there is many alternatives of doing it. And we have to choose the most financially and economically viable way of doing it. And obviously, a project like infrastructure is not operating in vacuum. It's operating with people. So social sustainability is also very important. So in that context, you know, depending on the country, so impact on inequality, impact on poverty is also something that we should care about in the broader context of sustainability. Thank you.
The third question for Jung. Yeah.
Thank you. I got two questions. So one is, what is the essence of certain policy in terms of Pacific interconnectivities? Actually, the new certain policy is not only for the strategy between the Korea and ASEAN. It will be expanded to the Indo-Pacific, surely. And that the concept, our government strategic concept was shown the first slide. And secondly, how should Korea incorporate the new southern policy into the Indo-Pacific framework? And to do that, I believe our many diplomatic channels, dialogues, and the summit, bilateral summit, and summit with multilateral framework are very active. And that's why this year the Korean government will hold the Korean ASEAN special meeting in Korea. And absolutely, the Korean government will step up and scale up the activities, relationship, to enhance the relationship and to reach our southern new southern policy to the Indo-Pacific connectivity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For Elena, the first question.
Thank you. First, an apology to Mas Romy. I'm deaf in my right ear, so I struggle to hear sound bouncing around in a room like this. But I believe that your question was about the trilateral partnership for infrastructure investment in the Indo-Pacific, which is between the US, Japan and Australia, and you asked about the eligibility requirements for that trilateral partnership. Which countries were we considering? Which countries does it cover? So the trilateral partnership is between these three partners, but it's for all of the Indo-Pacific. So that means South Asia, Southeast Asia, and of course the Southwest Pacific as well. Now, the MOU that underpins the partnership was signed between our export financing agencies, so OPIC for the US, JBIC for Japan, EFIC for Australia, and DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade for Australia as well. And this means that this really reinforces, I guess, the point that the trilateral partnership is very much about trying to mobilise more private sector investment in regional infrastructure development, because as Jeff said, that is where the real longer term sustainability gains come from. So everything that Jeff said there in terms of working with the private sector and countries' willingness to I guess, make the necessary reforms and create the right enabling environment are also important for trilateral partners. We need to be able to try to identify projects that will attract private sector investors. Now, in the first instance, we are doing a country mission in PNG, partly because the trilateral partnership was announced in Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea last year. And we also announced the PNG electrification partnership at the same time. So we've already developed some opportunities to explore there that we'd like to. But in fact, Jeff and I were just discussing earlier that we're very interested in identifying which countries we should perhaps conduct missions to next in Southeast Asia. And every country is on the table. It's really going to be about working out where we think our respective private sectors in Japan, in the US and Australia are going to find the most opportunities for working together. So certainly we were talking about a country like Vietnam, obviously Indonesia as well, but then there's the Philippines, Thailand. So we look forward to, I guess, continuing those discussions, but also to discussing this and engaging with governments in the region to identify where there are prospective activities and projects on which trilateral partners, the US, Japan and Australia, could cooperate to advance sustainable infrastructure development in our region. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, silakan Pak.
Thank you very much for the questions. Okay, I think I should probably answer the second question first. Regarding AIIB, I mean, how it relates with the BRI or Belt One Road. First of all, is that this institution is not China institutions. It's not an institution owned by China government. So we is in fact at the is an MDB family. So owned by 93 countries right now. I should not say probably countries, just 93 members, because one of them is actually Hong Kong, so China will be very furious if they call it as a country as well. So 93 members, so with a lot of shareholders variety. So we are not China government's bank. So we owned by 93 members. And if you're asking whether we could finance the project from One Belt One Road, yes, as long as they comply to our standard, environmentally or financially, maybe also socially. Because we are very concerned on the quality of the projects rather than where the project is actually coming from. So out of 35 projects that we already approved, a few of them are actually also projects that can be categorized as part of the One Belt One Road projects. It was proposed by the country that within the One Belt One Road programs or area that also having to also propose out to us their projects. So we can do that. So based on that definition, I guess, on the bank, I think I will not in the positions to answer your first questions, because that is actually the question has to be addressed for China government, not bank, because we definitely not be able to answer that. But just for your information, however, right now I guess since we are in Beijing, and there is also, and we are very physically close to an office that called One Belt One Road Fund, which in fact there are also an office that deals with really only One Belt One Road. So many of the other MDBs are right now are interested. Can AIIB to be function as sort of like a bridge between the MDBs and the One Belt One Road, because I guess in order to leverage the One Belt One Road as initiative programs to be probably better understood, also could be financing really good projects. So probably through AIIB or maybe with the coordination of the AIIB, we could communicate and transfer of technology to the people that taking care of One Belt One Road, because they also have their own project pipelines. So if we could communicate and maybe sharing informations, what would be our standard, how can we actually approve the projects, then we do hope the quality of the project in the One Belt One Road will also getting higher and higher. So with the getting higher and higher quality of the project in the One Belt One Road, definitely we also benefited the program itself, because maybe many of the private sector may also be willing to finance the programs over there. That's probably the one that I can answer. But other than that, I cannot answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we've answered all the questions, and I think I'm way past my limited time, allotted time. It's 5:50 now. So thank you very much for all the presenters. I should get back to the MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, speakers. Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. Before we really end this program, I would like to invite Dr. Arifi Saiman, Director of the Policy Analysis and Development for Asia Pacific and Africa, to deliver his closing remark. For Dr. Arifi, the floor is yours.
Director General, Policy Analysis and Development Agency, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Siswo Pramono LLM, Ibu Yeti Jainal, MA PhD, Head of Center for Indo-Pacific Studies, Universitas Negeri Padang, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. After one day of insightful deliberations. Now we come to the concluding session of the international seminar entitled Indo-Pacific Connectivity Outlook here in Padang, West Sumatra on 11 March 2019. On behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I would like to take this opportunity of conveying my utmost gratitude and appreciations to the Governor of West Sumatra, Mr. Irwan Prayitno, for opening officially the seminar, and Professor Ganefri, PhD, who is represented by Professor Dr. Sahrial Bahtiar, Vice Rector for Planning and Cooperation Affairs, Universitas Negeri Padang, for supporting the holding of the seminar, as well as all the distinguished speakers that have traveled far away to Indonesia to participate in this international seminar. Distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, the international seminar themes Indo-Pacific Connectivity Outlook today is a forum to explore the possibilities of enhancing mutually beneficial cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, among others through the measures towards connecting the connectivities in the regions. It also attempts to find convergence of interests or commonalities amongst the platforms, including by engaging the third party, such as development partners circle of financial institutions like the Asian Development Bank, or even individual countries such as China with its Belt and Road Initiative. Distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, the international seminars comes up with the sound policy recommendations and practical measures to enrich our Indo-Pacific connectivity outlook. As we have mentioned earlier, all the papers and presentations during the seminar will be part of the proceedings of the international seminar Indo-Pacific Connectivity Outlook. All these will be published in special book and will be launched by Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic Indonesia at the high-level dialogue on Indo-Pacific cooperation towards a peaceful, prosperous, and inclusive region in Jakarta later this month on 21st March 2019. Distinguished speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, now please allow me to highlight the substantial items of discussion presented by honorable speakers during the seminar as the governor notes as follows. For session 1, Indo-Pacific in the context of ASEAN Century, New Centers of Growth, speakers underlined several points of discussion. First, discussing the rise of the ASEAN Century and acknowledge the landscape of the Indo-Pacific regions, which consists of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean region as single strategic theater is now the center of growth, global growth. Indo-Pacific needs a common outlook for confidence building, a spirit of cooperation, and an inclusive platform for regional resilience cooperation. Second, discussing Indonesia's proposal to encourage the scope of cooperation that includes 3 areas, namely maritime cooperation, connectivity, and sustainable development goals or SDGs as 3 priority common interests in the Indo-Pacific regions. Third, discussing African Union's initiative program for infrastructure development in Africa, or PIDA, towards facilitating continental integration through establishing projects that improve regional infrastructure. Fourth, discussing Russia's eagerness to connect the Eurasia projects in Indo-Pacific planned infrastructure development based on the ASEAN-centered vision of the Indo-Pacific regions. Fifth, discussing the vision of the Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity 2025 to achieve a seamlessly and comprehensively connected and integrated ASEAN that will promote competitiveness, inclusiveness, and greater sense of community. For the session 2, connectivity in Indo-Pacific, projection 2020-2030, The speakers underlined several points of discussions. First, discussing the need to develop comprehensive research on infrastructure finance scheme that complement each other to offer the maximum benefit for all countries in the Indo-Pacific. Second, discussing the research conducted through computable general equilibrium model to estimate economic impact of infrastructure improvement on GDP and trade in countries and regions envisioned by the Free and Open Indo-Pacific Strategy in 2030. Third, discussing India's infrastructural experiences in Sagar and identifies the scope and opportunities for promoting maritime connectivity in the Indo-Pacific region and a way forward. Fourth, discussing EU commitments to cooperate with Indonesia, ASEAN and its other ASEAN partners in an inclusive way, ensuring presence and contributions of the relevant partners at the tables. Fifth, discussing the proposal to expand the master plan on ASEAN connectivity to be implemented as the basis for the Indo-Pacific Connectivity Outlook. For Session 3, financial schemes for the infrastructure development in the Indo-Pacific region, the speakers underlying several points of discussion. First, discussing Australia's initiative as a responsive partner in infrastructure financing to advance the future prosperity and stability in the Indo-Pacific regions. Second, discussing ADB's experience in providing financing efforts towards improving connectivity as a foundation for economic integration to encourage increased trade, investment, and movement of people in the Indo-Pacific. Third, discussing the challenges, difficulties, as well as the opportunities of infrastructure development in the regions and what's role of multilateral development banks such as AIAB and regional governments to harness its potentialities. Fourth, discussing the Republic of Korea's new Southern Policy Strategy, which has three main pillars: people, peace, and prosperity, to collaborate with ASEAN members in order to build up a common future in Indo-Pacific regions. Fifth, discussing Sagar's role and experience in fostering sustainable infrastructure financing scheme towards meaningful multilateral linkages in the Indo-Pacific region. Distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, finally, I thank you all for your active participation and contribution during the seminar, and to all the speakers departing to their home country, please allow me to bid you farewell. I wish you safe journey home. Last but not least, once again, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the Center of Indo-Pacific Studies, Universitas Negeri Padang, as a co-partner of today's seminar, for excellent support and cooperation which makes this international seminar possible and gain a big success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arifi. Ladies and gentlemen, we have finally reached the end of the seminar. On behalf of the Policy Analysis and Development Agency, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, we would like to once again thank our distinguished speakers and moderators, also to all participants for your kind participations. We hope this seminar will be beneficial for our Indo-Pacific future. I would like to extend dinner invitation to honorable speakers and moderators from the Head of Policy and Analysis and Development Agency, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Siswo Pramono, at Mercure Hotel at 7 p.m. tonight. The dress code shall be casual. Once again, thank you and have a good evening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.